Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Among the Sleep, which is just about to release for the Nintendo Switch. And while this game definitely came out in 2015 for a multitude of platforms, its release to the Switch incorporates a new prologue as well as a museum mode, which we will get to talk about just a little bit toward the end of the review. Moving into the story though, this might be a bit counterintuitive for some players with reasonable amounts of experience in the survival horror genre, as we don't really know our exact situation or what we have to do to survive. We actually start the game on the day of our 2-year-old protagonist's second birthday, where in the middle of being fed a couple bites of cake, a mysterious knock comes to the door. It's clear that some male stranger has brought a present for the 2-year-old child, and after a couple minutes of the initial introductory scenes, we're dropped off in our playroom alone with our new walking, talking teddy bear. And while I have to admit that I was actually a bit creeped out by this talking teddy bear's creepily passive voice and its incredibly dilated pupils, before you're really even allowed to start playing the game, the creepy factor goes up exponentially. And we're not talking clowns with sharp teeth handing you red balloons, we're talking all-out poltergeist. As our brand new teddy bear is subtly dragged from the crib by a mysterious invisible force, the crib itself is dragged toward the door and flipped over, leaving the 2-year-old protagonist alone on his own in a dark room. And this is how you begin playing the game. Locked into the unadulteratedly innocent perspective of a 2-year-old, every object seems to loom over you, and the mere absence of light makes everything borderline satanic. And the developers did an absolutely astounding job developing the visuals as well as the audio to keep you in this incredibly creepy ambiance. However, as the game progresses and more of the story is unveiled, the game itself slowly starts to change. As such, Among the Sleep can easily be divided into what we can assume are 3 different chapters of the game, where only the first one is navigating your way through your creepy dark house. And while this does provide more environmental puzzling opportunities, it does negate a little bit of the creepiness. And navigating your way through this pajama-clad 2-year-old's surrealistic dream world, most of the puzzle environments will appear visually stunning, but the puzzles are a little bit lackluster. The majority of the time you'll merely be wandering through environments with the occasional item to collect, but mostly you'll be pushing around chairs in order to climb up on something to open a door. And as we move deeper and deeper into the game, the environments get more surrealistic, and even though the puzzles may be harder to accomplish, they aren't really any more complicated. And additionally, as the environments become more and more surreal, the player's role in the actual subtext of the game becomes more and more transparent. And while it is definitely not my intention to spoil anything for anyone who's interested in playing the game, I do want any viewers who are particularly sensitive to certain topics to realize that themes of alcohol abuse are very, very strong toward the end of the game. And while the ending of the game actually does become pretty predictable by the time you get to about the halfway point, indie games are all about genre exploration and really trying conventions that aren't really available to AAA games, so I have to applaud the developers at least for their effort. And on that note, for any players who do particularly enjoy their 3 to 4 hour playthrough of Among the Sleep, as I mentioned earlier, there's both a prologue and a museum mode of the game. And while the prologue does add a bit of extra gameplay, I really do want to highlight the museum piece because it does very well to go into a vivid meta-analysis of both the developers' motivations and some of the hidden subtext of the game. However, despite the game's vividness and its poignant social message, as horror fans would expect, there is a totally creeptastic vibe and a good amount of jump scares, but it's nothing like the anxiety or the state of constant fear that's nurtured in games like Fentaruk. And any fans that are more interested in the story or maybe the environmental puzzling might be a little dissatisfied with the absolute simplicity of most of the environmental puzzles. Additionally, regardless of which type of gamer you are or how you're trying to enjoy Among the Sleep, one thing that's definitely going to stand out is the somewhat confusing controls. Despite A being the action button in all of the menus, the right bumper is the action button within the actual gameplay. And between moving your character, panning your visuals, picking up items, manipulating and opening doors, standing up, crawling, running, and walking, there is a slew of buttons to get memorized for this short game. And on the note of the game's brevity, the ending itself does seem pretty abrupt, and even though it does have additional gameplay afforded through the prologue, it almost feels kind of like a different version of the game. Characters, monsters, and objectives are all pretty much different, and it doesn't really seem to completely connect to the original story. Additionally, while the visuals of the game are very vivid, they are also incredibly dark. And even when adjusting the gamma settings on your television or on your Switch up as far as they'll go, you really can't see much, and a lot of the game feels like stumbling around in the dark. And while this definitely does enhance the creepiness factor of general game exploration, it really works to impede your environmental puzzle solution. And as one final note, though this may be my own isolated gaming experience, bouncing around, constantly shifting and almost flailing perspectives as a toddler who's stumbling between walking, running, and crawling actually started to give me a little bit of motion sickness playing on a large screen TV in the dark. So anyone who does suffer from motion sickness or gets a little queasy playing through true environmental VR may want to play this one in handheld mode. But anyway, that does about wrap up the review of Among the Sleep, just now coming out for the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review or found it helpful, feel free to throw me a like or a comment to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. There are new and unique indies coming out literally every single day, so there's always going to be something new to find right here. But in all honesty, since I can only cover about 3 reviews a week, if you want a heads up on which games might be being reviewed next, you can follow us on Twitter. And if you really want to help support the channel and help me actually create these reviews, I would always appreciate another Patreon. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.